Welcome to Chalk Talk, a weekly preview of West Tennessee football featuring the Jackson Sun sports team here on jacksonsun.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Week 10 edition of the High School Football Chalk Talk here at jacksonsun.com. My name is Craig Thomas. This is sports editor Brandon Shields. Lots to talk about as we go to the last weekend of the regular season. Lots of good games and a handful of them at 7 p.m. One of them is right here in Jackson. It's a district title game as St. George's visits USJ.
For the fifth time in as many years that they've had Division II Class A, or since USJ moved to Division II, these teams are meeting for the district championship in Division IIA West, and neither team comes into this game with, I guess, with as impressive of a record as either program is used to. USJ at 6-3 and St. George's at 5-4, but that's credit to both of them for scheduling some pretty tough non-district games. But when they get into district, they continue just to beat everybody every week and prove themselves to be the class of the district. And it's different this year that they're playing in Week 10, where it comes down to this game at the end. But both of them are sitting okay for the playoffs. They're both obviously in the playoffs in Division II or Division II. There's no Z plan or anything. It's just finishing the top three in your district. District champion gets a first round bye. Second place gets a first round home game, and third place team travels. So they're both going to host their first playoff game. Just the winner gets to take a week off before they do it.
Okay. Trinity Christian started off the season 8-0. They had, really not too much trouble through those games. Last week, a really difficult game, a big loss at Evangelical Christian School, a team that's playing very well itself. TCA needs a bounce back this week against a district opponent when the Lions host Riverside.
Talking to TCA head coach Blake Butler Friday night after they got back from Jackson, he talked about he hoped that his team took away from that game just kind of what they need to do against a big physical team like ECS to get better as a team and prepare for the playoffs, because they're probably going to meet a team like that at some point in the playoffs if they keep winning long enough. Well, before they get to the playoffs, they're going to meet a big physical team, and that's because Riverside's coming to town, and Riverside's going to have a little bit of extra motivation because if things fall right, including a Riverside win in this game, they could potentially win the district championship. JCS Jackson Christian has got to beat Adamsville for that to happen. But it's a possibility. TCA, all they got to do is win for the district championship. But how TCA is going to react, this is their first time coming back from a loss this year, so we don't know how these kids are going to react in that situation. But it could happen, or they're going to have to face it one way or the other against a team kind of a similar makeup of ECS, but this time it's for district implications that could also affect the playoffs in a pretty major way.
We've seen some pretty good games in Alamo this year. Should have another good one this Friday as Martin Westview visits Crockett County.
Yeah, Crockett County, I saw them last week against Lexington. This is a team that's really rolling right now, and they're playing Westview, and head coach Don Cody, Kevin Ward, Crockett County's head coach, used to be an assistant coach at Westview, was their defensive coordinator there for a little while, and whoever wins this game is going to have the runner-up spot in District 13 AA, and that'll obviously help their playoff seeding when they get to the postseason. But two big physical teams up front that like to run the ball, but both teams also like to pass the ball too. Ty Brown for Westview, and Deshaun Pickens and Elijah Shaw at Crockett. Some athletes that can catch the ball and get down the field pretty quickly.
All right, so there's three good games there among several at 7 p.m. Then as we move to the 7:30 games, we've got Jackson Northside at Haywood.
Yeah, that one's going to be a good game between a couple of good ground attacks with some athletes that can get down the field as well. Bryce Young and Will Lawson are a couple of players from Haywood that are really good at moving the ball. I covered Haywood a few weeks ago, and Austin is their quarterback, not necessarily known as much as Young for their running, but he had, I think, 3 rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown that night. And then, obviously, Northside with Martavius Love, Marcus Maxwell, Cha-Cha Rivers, and Jarvis Bryant, and a few other athletes that really help them. not only are able to win games, but they've shown their ability to win the close games. They played, out of 9 games this year, they played 5 games that came down to the final few minutes, if not the final minute, if not the final play. And in those 5 games, they're 4-1. So, you know, some big play or big game experience and in tough situations, and they may need that experience to get a win over Haywood this week.
Another good one in Gibson County this time is Trenton Peabody visits Humboldt. What are you looking for in that one?
Well, I'll admit about this one. Before the season started, this was one of the big matches, like probably one of the 3 games for the whole season I was looking forward to the most, just because of the recent history between the teams. Now, in the last couple of weeks, since Union City beat Humboldt 2 weeks ago and then Peabody last week, maybe some of the luster has been taken off of the game because they're essentially playing for the district runner-up instead of the district championship. It's still going to be a fun game. 2 teams, close by neighbors that have had a good bit of football success in recent years, obviously want to beat each other. All those teams in Gibson County enjoy beating each other, and these are probably the 2 best this year. And so I guess unofficially you could almost call this the Gibson County Championship as well. And both teams want to win that, and a couple of first-year coaches for each program. They want to get into go into the playoffs, riding some momentum with a big win.
All right, there's a game in Weakley County this Friday night as well that you could probably make a case as the game of the night, as Huntington heads up the highway to play Dresden for a district championship.
Talking to Huntington head coach Eric Swinson and Dresden head coach Keith Hodge earlier in the week on our radio show, and Coach Swinson kind of made a reference a couple of times to this being a rivalry just because of the magnitude that the game has had in recent years, and just the implications that it's had in district and playoffs. And plus, both programs have been really successful in recent years. They've both been to Cook Bowl at some point in the last couple of years, and if they don't get at least to the semifinals and play after Thanksgiving, they get close to it. So he said that his players at Huntington really look forward to playing in this rivalry game. Well, then you talk to Coach Hodge, and he's like, well, I don't really call it a rivalry because you can't really call it a rivalry until we win one or two of these games. And obviously he knows that Huntington's going to be a tough opponent coming in there trying to get that win. But Dresden's played pretty tough as well this year, and while Huntington has had an obvious advantage in recent years with some lopsided scores, I think 38-7 last year. If Dresden doesn't make mistakes early on and put themselves in a hole, it's a whole lot different game later in the ball game, and could have gone either way. But that was last year. This is this year. This is for the district championship and for improved playoff seeding and some possible first-round buys for both of those teams.
And then just down the road from that game, Gleason will host Brewston. What should we look for from that game?
Both of these teams have improved records going into Week 9, particularly for Brewston after winning 1 game last year. If they win this game, that's going to be a 7-3 record going into the playoffs. Whoever wins this game is going to have a 7-3 record going into the playoffs, and both teams are in with 6 wins already. They're not playing for district championships. They're not playing for runner-up or anything like that. It's just who's going to have a better wild card seeding in the first round. But it's going to be a good game between a couple of programs that are pretty identical. They're both really small schools. They're both got a few athletes here and there, and it's just going to who executes a little better than the other.
All right, so obviously the Week 10 slate pretty good. Of course, this is the last weekend of the regular season, meaning this is the last weekend where everybody plays. After this, we'll start knocking some teams down, and that'll be something to watch as we get into Saturday. Kind of here's your schedule for the week. We'll have some stories previewing the games throughout the week. Friday, you want to check out the Blitz page with the stats and the game previews. Friday night, we'll have stories, we'll have photos, we'll have the Extra Crunch video package, and then Saturday morning, and print those stories and videos and just a roundup of all the local games, so lots to look forward to in there. And then Saturday we should find out, I guess, who's in the playoffs and who's out, basically.
10 o'clock is when the TSSAA is kind of planning on having that released. Hopefully, if they're on schedule, hopefully by lunchtime we'll have something up on the web with some comments from coaches and stuff. But yeah, that's going to be an important process as well. That starts at like 10:30 Friday night and goes through 10 a.m. Saturday morning.
All right, so if you're a fan of one of those bubble teams, JacksonSun.com, a good place to find out as soon as you can when those brackets are released, if your team's going to be playing in the playoffs or not. So we thank you for joining us. Hope you have a great week, and we'll hope to see you out there on Friday.